Later.
Okay, I'll start over. So thank you everyone for coming. Yaler and I have been thinking about doing this for months now. And so we're really happy that there's interest in learning more about crypto and the crypto space. My name's Rachel. I work in the crypto space. I co-founded an organization with Yaler called MetaSpace. We also work together on an organization called Panvala, which is a community-run treasury. And for me personally, what's drawn me to crypto is the community aspect of it and how it can make communities stronger and more independent and autonomous. So I'll let Yaler introduce himself, but then I would like to go around and just have everyone tell us kind of why you're here or what you would like to get out of the class, because we definitely have things we want to relay to you about the space, but we want to make sure that that you're getting the information you want. And so as we kind of continue through the class, if you have a question, we just ask you to make a little hand signal like this, so we know you have something you want to say or contribute, and then we'll let you speak. So Yaler, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Rachel. Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Yaler, and I have been working on Ethereum for about a little over 3 years. I always say Ethereum found me. I didn't find it. I was fortunate to have some great mentors who brought me into the space. And in the beginning, I was probably like many of you going, what the heck is this? And how do I even begin to understand or comprehend it? And it was a daunting task, to say the least, but I was excited to learn and to find these projects that have kind of just risen up and shown up in my sphere and have given me an opportunity to become quite successful in this space. I am able to help a lot of people. I'm able to do things that align with what I think my work here is. And I call myself a CCO, a Chief Communication Officer or Chief Community Officer. And what I do is really bring people together. I help empower them with the tools that we have so that they can build things that they find interesting and collaborate with other people through something that we call DAOs, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. And we'll hear more about that later. So yeah, once again, thanks to everyone for being here and to Rachel for putting this on. I find myself in a ton of like really heady conversations about crypto and blockchain and where it's all going, but we often forget that the most valuable lessons and people are at the beginning stage, like where they can really utilize these new technologies and what we can do with them and how they can really benefit your life moving forward. So yeah, that's me.
I'll just kind of go around on my screen. So Jojo, do you want to go next maybe?
Yeah, totally. Hi, everybody. I'm Jojo. I have heard so much about crypto and it just kind of, I've never been a technology person and it's way over my head. So I'd like to get a little bit more of an understanding about it. I know it's a transition that is so beneficial for the future. So I'm so grateful for you guys putting this on. Thank you.
Well, let's go to Farouk.
Hi, everyone. I'm Farouk. I'm a product designer on SourceGrid, which is how I got involved in the crypto space. I don't know if everyone is familiar with SourceGrid here, but if not, so a quick overview of it is it's an algorithmic tool to help communities measure and reward value for the contributions that participants and members of a community create. And it's specifically optimized to capture and reward value that is intangible and not your typical transactional value. So it can do things like capture emotional labor and like running event planning and holding space for one another during meetings, and like how do you facilitate a great meeting, like all this stuff that contributes value and meaning to an experience, but is usually sort of like done in invisible ways and is not tracked or ignored or rewarded. And the way we sort of like capture that is using crypto technology on the blockchain to sort of measure and reward it. This is my partner Jacqueline, and we're like, I'm still relatively new to crypto altogether. I've been in technology for a long time, so I've like had my eye a little bit on that, but to say that I really know what's going on in crypto after all those years, not so much. And now that I work in it, it's like, okay, time to learn more. So yeah.
As a fun aside, we got our hand signals from SourceGrid. They've had a lot of impact on me and a really wonderful community of people building really interesting tools, but very high level, very technical.
Very human first.
Looks like Bill.
This is my partner, Jacqueline.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline. I study economics, but I have no experience in cryptocurrency, so I was really curious to listen in on this.
And that's us.
Perfect. Kyle.
Hey guys, I'm Kyle. I'm an accountant in the real world, but I transitioned to crypto about 4 years ago. I do a lot of asset management, market analysis, and research. I'm kind of here to help with any questions or provide any feedback with anything you guys might have. This space is extremely exciting. It's still very early, I believe. So kudos to all you guys for showing up.
Thanks, Kyle. Dean. Dean, are you there? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my camera.
Oh, it's okay. Dean, what brings you to this this class today? What would you like to get out of it?
A little more knowledge. I just started investing about 6 weeks ago, so I'm a newbie.
And that's in crypto?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's go to Jason. Jason? Okay. Marcy.
Hey, I'm Marcy, and I'm still eating breakfast, which is why I'm off camera. But I have been getting involved in SourceCred, what Farouk was just speaking about, and I know nothing. I'm like, I think what Jojo said, I don't know any. I'm really technology is a struggle for me, and it seems relevant to learn this stuff if I want to get involved in SourceCred and just be a human these days. So that's why I'm here.
Dan.
Hey guys, I'm Dan. I'm a developer in the space. I've been working in the space for a while, so I'm benefiting a lot from it every day. So I want to be here mostly to get my girlfriend more involved and I don't know, make her also benefit from the space because I think it's awesome. This is Varsha, by the way.
Hi, I'm Varsha. I'm an artist and an animator. I hear a lot about crypto in general from this guy, so I want to know a little more. And I want to actually find out a little more about crypto art and NFTs and things like that. So I'm hoping that you guys will touch up on those. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Is it Bugra or Bugra?
Yeah, this is Bura here. Hi, everyone. I met with blockchain like 3 years ago in a project that we developed with UNDP, and we were working about building a community around how we can mobilize the blockchain for good. And at that time, it was there was not that much practical applications that we can mobilize besides like transferring the remittance and ID kind of things. But then I met with SourceCred and that hi Farouk, and especially get excited about the community. And I started to realize that there is a space for the community builders like myself without any technical knowledge that can take some part of this progress. but still I needed to learn. And also I'm working on this project for Atölye. It's a creative app located in Istanbul, and we are launching this learning community, and we can try to understand how we can identify value generating interactions in a learning community setting. So that's why I'm also involved with the SourceCred, that how we can mobilize that in that setting. And also thank you for doing that, especially not just learning new things, but meeting with people who are interested on this. Very exciting.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I don't own a webcam, so I'm sorry. So I've been introduced to the blockchain world by a friend of mine. I've been introduced to the community of SourceCred, and as a software engineer, I looked at the project and I was like, wow, I don't know any of this stuff. So I'm here just to learn. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Joseph.
Hi, everyone. I have a bunch of friends who've been involved in crypto for a while, and while I've helped some of them get to Burning Man and done a little dabbling in regards of trading or buying and selling, I haven't really ever gotten involved in the community side of the crypto or the development side of crypto, and I'm definitely excited to learn more. It feels like that opportunity is ever more available than before. And I'm not a coder, but I don't necessarily plan to be, but would love to be able to help with the community side of things. And it seems like there's so many cool new tools being developed and designed.
Thanks, Joey. All right, Yaler, I'm going to send it over to you. Yaler's going to do most of the talking. And if a question comes up while he's saying things, just give a hand signal so we can answer your question while we're on the topic.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And do me a favor, if you do see someone has a question, because I don't have the gallery view, just stop me by raising your hand and I'll stop talking. I do tend to talk a lot, so I'm going to try to give you information, let you digest it, and then go from there. But I just also want to let everyone know there's actually a lot of really smart people in this room that may know more or as much as me about the crypto space. So please feel free to, bring in your points of view and your experiences as well. If those of you who are just as knowledgeable as me, this is a kind of a session for all of us where we can share. It's not a preaching session or anything where I have all the answers, because I certainly don't. So yeah, with that, we'll start. So Rachel's given me kind of a rough outline. She's asked me to speak a little bit about some of the terms, some of the slang, and I think that'll help inform us a little bit. She's also creating what she's calling a crypto dictionary, which I think will be a really useful tool in the future, because we have a lot of crazy terms in this space, like crypto in and of itself. What is crypto? Crypto is basically a slang term for cryptoeconomics or cryptocurrencies or cryptography, basically. And these three things have different functions. Cryptography is a way of encrypting data. It's much older than crypto, this kind of crypto, actually. Cryptography has been around for a long time. And cryptography is kind of what makes cryptocurrencies safe, essentially. Cryptoeconomics are cryptocurrencies and how they function in systems. So a community or a project could have a token. So it's a cryptoeconomic system where the token is exchanged back and forth between members of the community. And Ethereum, for example, is a blockchain, just like Bitcoin is a blockchain. And then inside of those blockchains, some of them have their own cryptocurrencies. So the cryptocurrency of Ethereum is ETH or Ether or ETH, depending on how you like to say it or where you're from. And so ETH, as some call it, is it's the processing power for the cryptocurrency. So a blockchain allows people to transact value across borders, across languages and to be able to send that transaction directly in what we call a peer-to-peer manner. So instead of going through like from Rachel to a bank to Farouk, it goes from Rachel to Farouk directly, right through using the blockchain essentially. And the blockchain is just a way of describing a system of algorithmic computation. I don't want to get too heady into these like terms because actually like they're not really important things to know until later on, or until you become a security researcher or a developer or something like that. But basically the blockchain makes the transactions happen. So if I send Rachel 3 tokens, the blockchain processes that that request, and it says, does my Ethereum account have 3 tokens? Okay, good. It processes. The miners that create the processing, what are they called? Process the transactions, say, yes, you have 3. Okay, we can send 3 to her, subtracts 3 from my account and sends it directly to her account. So there's no people involved in that. No one needs to check that. As in when you make a bank deposit, someone needs to verify and check the money's there, and then they process the transaction. That's why they don't happen on the weekends. Well, the blockchain is 24/7. So I can send it to anyone who has an internet connection and an Ethereum address, and it'll show up reasonably fast. There's something called gas fees on Ethereum, and gas fees are what you pay whenever you process a transaction. So because the price of Ethereum is going up quite significantly these days, it ends up sending the gas fees up, which is not a great thing for mainstream users or for people who might be really wanting to utilize this tech in like third worlds or for like nonprofit situations. So we're creating something called layer 2. So there's Ethereum layer 1 and Ethereum layer 2. And I think of it just like new versions of the same thing that has improved functionality. It has like lower or no gas costs at all. And it's just a progress, right? Like anything that's created will be improved upon and it'll progress over time. That's what's happening with Ethereum. So the way to look at this, yes, sorry, someone has a question.
Sorry, Farouk, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to include the part of the verification process on transactions, which while it doesn't go through in a central banking system, when you send a transaction, it does get verified by other nodes on the blockchain to make sure that you're not sending money to one person and then sending another like amount to or the same amount to like another person without anyone knowing that you used the same like crypto amount twice. And so there's a transaction threshold before it really goes through where other nodes on the blockchain verify that this is correct.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. And what he's referring to is what they call it, double spend, right? That's what I believe they call it. When that happens, it's called double spend. And that's like an attack vector, basically. If you were to spend 100 Bitcoins in one place and try and spend it in another place, if there weren't nodes to ensure that, it would essentially short someone of those currencies. So you want to make sure that those things are there. And nodes, how would you refer to nodes, Farouk? Like if we're talking about nodes versus blockchains, like how would people differentiate?
Node is a unit along the chain, right?
Yeah, I guess, Jacqueline says a node is a unit along the chain. I think that's a pretty decent description. Yeah, I don't know, like how would I explain nodes in the blockchain so much?
It's tricky, right?
Are people familiar with the node graph is the first question. Like, are people familiar with what that looks like?
Farouk, assume we know nothing.
Yeah. So
101.
One way that I recently described it is imagine a field of stars and the connections between nodes are constellations, except they're not just drawn by the eye, but they're actual links between nodes. And multiple, like any number of connections can exist between nodes. So imagine drawing a constellation like with one big star at the center and lots of bursts outward, like that node has a lot of connection to other nodes. That's kind of how I visualize it, and that helps a lot of people do.
Got it. So that's a great way to think about it, right? You have a node and then you have all of these other little connecting nodes. And the security in that is a transaction is processed that has to be verified by a handful of those nodes. I don't know what the total number is, but a substantial amount of those nodes in order to say this data is accurate and will not be processed, like rushed through until it's like proven that these funds are going from here, or that this transaction is verifiable, basically. But yeah, a good distinction as well. Yeah, does anyone else have questions about that? About like the way the blockchain works or nodes or these kind of things? It's a little bit more of a heady topic, but it is good information to know. What I find is even if you don't like really comprehend these things at first, it's okay. You can still proceed. Don't say I don't understand nodes, so like this, this is clearly like too heady for me. Great. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Web3. Web3 is a term that we use to describe this new kind of blockchain cryptocurrency ecosystem. And we like to think of it as the evolution of the internet. So Web 1 brought you like communication, worldwide communication. Web 2 brought you like communication and like online sales tools, having shopping online, like, even some early video conferencing and calls and such like that. And Web3 is kind of the ultimate evolution of that. It brings like communities or people online in this sense, where you can interact, you can work online, you can almost live online. I probably spend the majority of my time online, communicating with people, working with people, and then transacting with people. So like a lot of the projects that I work for, they pay me directly in cryptocurrencies, and then I can use those cryptocurrencies in my local environment, or I can hold on to them for other purposes, spending them in Ethereum-based communities. Did you have a question?
Yeah, can you just be a little bit more specific with the difference between Web 2 and Web 3? Because for someone who's super new to the space, like when you say it's like where communities can come together, well, I feel like communities already come together in Web 2. So what's the difference? Like, what is it doing for communities now?
So yeah, this is my personal opinion, but I believe that the way that communities came together before was, I wouldn't say it started off as a centralized process, but I would say that it's kind of been like captured. Like we have what's called the data economy, and the data economy has been like created by companies like Facebook, Instagram, even Spotify, like any service that you pay for where you opt into a data policy that says, hey, we'll give you this service, but we're going to take your data and we're going to use it to improve our service or offerings, or maybe sell products to you in exchange for this service. Some companies even make you pay to harvest your own data, which is wild in my opinion, but we didn't have these tools before. And I think Farouk put a really good comment in the chat. He said that Web 2 is all about the rich internet applications, Google Maps, draggable maps. What is Ajax? Advent of Ajax. I don't actually know what that is. Do you want to talk about Web 2, Farouk? Sure.
That's a technical term. This was kind of like what came about in the early, like mid 2000s, like 2005, where Ajax is essentially a JavaScript technology that allows like live interactions with a server without reloading the page, which was the only way the web worked at the time. Like if you wanted new data, you had to like submit a form and the whole page would reload. And that was just a terrible experience. And Web 2 really brought this advancement in rich internet applications where you could have anything work like a desktop application.
Awesome. Yeah. So Farouk, see, the interesting thing is I didn't interface with Web 2 very much at all. I didn't own a computer until I was 25. I went straight to Web 3. So there's some people in here who have worked in the internet and have worked in tech for a long time and have a lot more familiarity with that. So yeah, that's super helpful information. But now with Web 3, we could create what's something called a DAO. And there's other ways of formulating this. There's other ways of like calling it or labeling it essentially, but it is an internet organization or an internet business. So you could have a business. It doesn't have to be a business. I'm not sure if we would refer to it as a business. I would call it more of a community, but it's like a shared treasury, a shared account where you have many people making decisions and governing those assets. So you could have them for grant giving purposes. You could have them for, fundraising purposes. You could have them for investment purposes, or you could just have like voting DAOs where people are choosing the things they want to be involved with, or the projects that they work on, or the way they spend their funds together. And it's governed in such a way that it allows people to have a true representation according to their shares. And however, it's open-ended in that sense, right? You can say each person, one share, one vote, or you can have it weighted. So it's like if I bought my shares at a higher price, or I worked my way into the community at a higher rate, then my shares are worth more. Or like even over time, as share value goes down, the people that come into the system later have less influence, and they can earn more influence through time or hitting some metrics. So that is like Web3 is a way of empowering people, I think. And it's like kind of a vision. It's more like ideological, that allows people to interact with each other live, where we can like have these communities online. We can use Discord, we can use Zoom, and we can work together or start projects together, and do it right over the internet. We can also exchange value right over the internet. Like we can go directly to each other. We can have communities that are totally peer-to-peer, where we're exchanging value, we're creating value together in this format, and we're also governing our assets together if we have this shared community or bank account that we call a DAO. Okay, so Rachel, yes.
Joey has a question.
Oh, I feel it might be a silly question after explaining all that, but something like Discord is an app, but like in any way, does that fit in to Web3?
Good question. Discord is a Web 2 application, but they do have some, there's also some things that ride the line. So Discord has some open source elements. I do believe they allow people to develop on their application, and open source is kind of like where we're going. Like open source means you have it open and the code is available for anyone to use or to recreate in their own way. They have some licensing specifications depending on what it is, like the MIT, free software license, where it says basically if you're going to make money with this, then you should pay the original creator. But if you're going to use it for your own purposes or you're going to use it for your community, then feel free to take it and build upon it. And so Discord does do that, but Discord is not a Web3 native application. It doesn't have a wallet built into it, if that answers your question.
So basically you have to have some sort of crypto wallet built in to make it be Web3. That's a financial link.
No, well, I think there's also like a good differentiation. Crypto is not all finance. It's value. So it's exchanging value. Now that value is only tied to the dollar because we think about getting paid in cryptocurrencies or how much those cryptocurrencies are worth. But there are systems where crypto, the token, is not worth anything. It's worth what the others in the community think, or it's worth whatever the piece of art that it represents is. So it's almost helpful to not think of it as a monetary situation, even though we tend to make it easier to understand. But yeah, so Discord in and of itself is not a Web3 application. Now, if they were built in a way that anyone could, if Discord, the company, was like, no, we're going to go to a business. And if anyone could just fire up Discord again and say, okay, we're going to create a new Discord. We're going to call it WizCord. And we're going to like put new branding on it. We're going to make it pink instead of gray. And it was like, and it had a native wallet into it, and it became a decentralized application. where anyone could spin it up and they could own their own instance of it, then that would be more along the Web3 ethos. It would be more in line with Web3, because kind of what I think people from the Web3 space believe is we should be able to have many versions of the same thing, and we shouldn't deny people access to a tool just because it's owned by a company. Because you actually harm communities and you harm projects when you centralize them in that way. Like, for instance, if Facebook is the company that brings many communities together and did a good job in that in Web 2, which I think we need to give them credit. They did a great job of connecting people and bringing people together from all around the world and making, lots of business deals happen as well, or like raising lots of funds for people. But we might think that they're not doing exactly the right things these days, and that's not necessarily their fault. Maybe it is. Some people agree. We won't debate that. It's the system in which it was created, right? They have shareholders. They need to make a profit and to maintain their operations. And so they may be doing it at their users' expense, which is something that I and a lot of other people don't agree with. So we're looking for a system where we can have Facebook-like features, but that we own and we control and we decide collectively. And perhaps the users own the platform, so that it's not a company or some shareholders determining what data should be sold or what not. It's the people who are represented, the people who have the value, right, that's being extracted, who own the platform. And that's much more along the lines of the Web3 ethos. Rachel?
Farouk has a comment.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say to add to that, because that was a great breakdown. The way I think of it with Web3 is that it's decentralized identity and ownership of your data. That's kind of like the key part, where in Facebook, they own your account. They own all of the data about your account. You can get an export of your data, but like all of the analytics and all of the insight that they have about you as a person and a purchasing behavior and your voting behavior, like all of this stuff, your political opinions, that data is all owned by Facebook and they profit off of that. In Web3, you would be the one owning that data and saying like, look, you can have access to some of this stuff to improve your business. But if I don't like what you're doing with it, I can cut you off of that data stream from my personal identity. And to use the Discord example, if Discord has the same thing where there's your Discord account, which is centralized by Discord. If their server of authentication and identity goes down, then you cannot log into any Discord server. And right now, as Theodore said, no one can spin up a Discord server on their own without Discord, the company, facilitating it. So it's not decentralized in that way. And the same is true with like your identity, your authentication layer. And that's really where Web3 is going to shine, with like decentralizing identity ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the for the clarification on the data point. It's really valuable for people, especially here, to understand like data is a really essential part of this whole crypto, these crypto solutions. We really believe strongly that people should control their own data, just like you control your own property. Just like if you go to the bank and you're like, I want all my money, they should be able to give it to you right there. And that we shouldn't have these companies basically gatekeeping for us and what we can have or not have, because they're taking things from us. They're taking information from us. It's our information. We have a right to say, yes, I want this information used in this way, or no, I don't want this information used in this way. And then the second part of that is with Web3, we want to build applications that allow people to say, I want to take my data or the data from this community and just bring it up over here. So think of an example, like I want to leave Facebook and go to Twitter, but I want to bring all my information from Facebook to Twitter seamlessly, so I can have, connections and friends there and whatnot. But that is not possible now. It's not interoperable right now. That's why you have 13 accounts for every different thing, because you have to sign in to everything and they have their own data capture system. But in the future, you could have one standardized data profile, and you could allow companies to access it. And you could say, okay, well, I want to get this service, so I'm going to opt into this data policy. Yes, Rachel?
Joey has another question.
Thank you. So as an additional thing, there's this, initially when I asked my question, I had heard this idea, it came in my mind as trackable value is being created in some way with Web3, that the value I'm hearing there's both this ability to own your own data and choose where it goes and being able to seamlessly move it from one space to another if you desire. But then on top of that, there's this ability, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're able to track the value of what anyone, and including yourself, is doing, to be able to let others know that.
I somewhat understand what you're saying. I think what we're where we're at now is more like reputation, perhaps, if you're saying trackable value. I think of trackable like thinking where you are, like location services, whatnot, which actually is what a lot of companies use to sell you more products. But we are creating reputation systems in Web3 where your value that you create in a community or for a project could go with you. And you could have those kind of accreditations where it's like, hey, I learned how to code on this date. I worked on these 3 projects with these people on this date. I did this initiative with this community in the Philippines, 3 years ago. And so people could look at those accomplishments and they could verify that those were accurate in some future system. And they could also verify that you're a human, you're a unique human versus a bot. We hear a lot about bots these days, especially like in election things. And so we're trying to create systems that are make sure that users are empowered and that people are thought of first instead of profits or bots or that give like people who can code advantages over regular normal people. So yes, I think that's part of the system. But if you're talking about looking at your value over time, I think that's going to be a very difficult. It's almost unquantifiable, right? Like, how do you quantify what value is a person who, a woman was a dance instructor for 15 years, or I was working with kids like in overseas or something. Like, the value is too tricky unless you're talking about the monetary side, right? How many transactions came in and out of your wallet? Sure, that can be measured really easily, but does that encompass all the value that you've created? No, I don't think so. Awesome. Are we doing good? Where are people at? Can I get like a comprehension check? And Farouk, I just want to say you've been super helpful. Like, these are great clarifying points. I'm glad to have people who understand things better than me in some elements, because there's so much information to comprehend, to digest.
Marcy has a question.
Hey, I feel like this is kind of a really elementary question to ask, but this is probably the space to do it. Can you give me like just kind of some clarity around centralized and decentralized? I feel like I have an idea of it, but I kind of just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly.
Sure, yeah, I'll do my best, and then Farouk, maybe you can help me with that as well. So centralized means it's run by one server or one set of servers that are owned by a group of people or a company or something like that. So a centralized solution would be like a bank is a centralized solution for your money. They have, like, we know that money is just numbers on a screen anymore, right? Because the money that you have in your bank account is no longer sitting in a bank account. It's just numbers on a screen. There's no gold in Fort Knox. Like, these things just don't exist anymore. So that number is controlled by the bank, and they say, okay, you have $2,000. And you're like, okay, great. I trust that that's correct, that you're going to keep that $2,000 credit for me. And that is the system that we've created that's centralized now. And I think that was just for efficiency purposes, right? Like, okay, we trust these people. There's a lot of trust in this system. And that's what makes it centralized, is we trust those people to say there's 2,000 in the bank. Okay, that number is going to stay 2,000. Now, decentralized means there are millions of people who have access to that bank ledger, as we call it. A blockchain is a distributed ledger. So there's millions of copies of the same information. So if everyone in this call has a wallet and you all have a unique account hash, I shouldn't say hash, a unique account string, right? and Rachel's ends in 752 and mine's ends in 995. Well, the money or the value of cryptocurrencies that's in that wallet doesn't go anywhere unless I say it goes somewhere, right? And I can check the balance of my wallet because there's millions of people that have access to this same blockchain information. And it's the data, that information is public. And that actually, it's not tied to your name unless you tie it to your name personally. So if you just have an Ethereum wallet, that information is maintained, how much cryptocurrency is in that wallet, what transactions have gone on throughout the history. That's the ledger of account, and who it was sent to. And that's what makes it safe and secure, is by allowing everyone to have access to the same information. Rachel, I see you have a question.
You can finish your thought first.
Sure. Yeah. So that's what I would say, like, as far as the blockchain system. But decentralized can also mean it is run by, like, a project or an application is run by people from all over the world. So SourceCred's a good example. They have contributors from Seattle and probably from Singapore and from all over the place. And I don't actually know, like, if they have, like, yeah, you can maybe talk about that.
We have mostly we have contributors like across the US, in Canada, and in Europe, yeah. No, I'll just leave it at that before I go on like my own rant.
Sure. Do you have some thoughts on decentralized? Because if you have strong,
I think your banking example is great. A big part of like why we have centralized banks is like the historical artifact of institutions. The idea of a single currency is something that has been floated for many decades, but like has not been a real opportunity because of technical constraints. Like each country had their own banks, and eventually over time we had international banks to facilitate international trade more easily. And then, a lot of currencies disappeared over the years. In the European Union, you have a really good example of like larger centralization in the currency, but decentralization in the banking system as a result, in that like all the banks in all the countries that are part of the Euro agreement support a euro from any other country because it's all one currency. But where we're taking it with Web3 and the blockchain is that like the cryptocurrency just cuts out the middleman of a centralized institution, and that institution is just the public ledger of the blockchain. So there's no more human involvement in like verifying this or controlling this. It's all automated systems that are public, other than like it's not public to your name, but it's public to your like receiving crypto address.
There's no treasury regulating everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the blockchain becomes the treasury, right? And that blockchain is maintained and owned by the people who have accounts. Yeah, that's a wonderful way to summarize it.
Marcy.
So is this idea primarily used for like when it like involved with money, or do these ideas of centralized and decentralized show up in other areas?
They definitely show up in other areas. It's not just money. Yeah. Once again, I think it's about value, like the value that an application or that a community brings together, and the almost censorship resistant aspects of decentralized are, like we were saying, if you have an application like Discord and you have communities doing grassroots work in their local town, but their local townhood wants to block them, and they say, hey, you're arranging support for a community or a party that we don't believe in, and they are censored. Well, if that application is censored, if that application is distributed, then another group or like another server may be able to spin that application up from a different place. If that helps answer your question, it's decentralization and censorship resistance go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Okay, can you give me an example of a centralized system that's not a bank?
Facebook.
Okay.
Any
what about
corporation that owns identities for people? is a centralized system. Like, we may know each other on Facebook and you might be connected to a lot of other people, but if you take Facebook out of the equation, then that's it. All of those accounts no longer connect to each other. In your head they do, but there's no technical infrastructure anymore that lets you see where they are, what they're doing. You don't get to like message them anymore, unless you have, of course, other communication platforms that you're connected to them. But like, you take Facebook out of the equation, they're all gone. Same with Twitter, same with Reddit. Like, if you take that big corporation out, everything, all of the accounts are done, and all of the data.
And even things like password managers, right? So centralization in something like a password manager is if they have one server where they run all of the information for all of your passwords for your accounts, well, if that server is attacked or hacked, then your information is vulnerable. And so is millions of other people. And that happens quite a lot, even with some blockchain companies where they're like, well, we put all of our information in this one server. And it's like, well, that's not a good solution, right? Because if that's a vulnerable space, then you're going to have a data leak or a data breach. So the same thing happened with Sony. The same thing happened with gaming companies. Yes, Rachel?
Oh, Joey has a question.
Oh, sure.
Dan as well. Dan has had their...
Sure. Before we jump into those questions, I want to just make sure, Marcy, did that answer your question, or was there more that you wanted to flesh out there?
I feel like I could ask a lot more questions, but this answered, it's good.
I think I'll just, as an aside, there is a really deep rabbit hole to go down here. It's a really fascinating topic. We should, when I'm willing to go down that path. It's a great discussion, but there's a lot to go there. So yeah, you're right. There's a ton of questions that you can ask, and hopefully you will be able to ask them in the future.
Thank you.
Joey, Dan, Joey.
Yeah. So it was cool to since crypto is decentralized, it makes sense that that's going to be able to support non-money based decentralized groups or programs or whatever you wanted to create that's non-decentralized. That there's these layers that can stack on each other. My mind also wants to go the other direction and thinking like just the servers themselves, which I feel like I had learned this at one point, but it now seems a little hazy in regards like if you have a decentralized bank, ultimately you still have to have hardware like machines running, someone's paying for those machines. And I guess the short answer I'd imagine is that has been figured out, that those machines are somehow being maintained or being incentivized to be maintained, so that, if someone, to make sure that there's computers running crypto in the background, for example, there's computers and things making the decentral network last.
Yes, absolutely. There's a project called Dapnode. It's actually a really amazing and exactly the solution that you're talking about. So it empowers users to run their own nodes and their own copies of the information, so that if a centralized server goes down, the web of these DApp nodes is able to maintain all the requests of data. And they received a great... Whoa. Yo. Sorry, my roommate's cooking bacon very aggressively. And the fire alarm just went off.
Joey, did that answer your question sufficiently? Dan, you...
I just wanted to add into the centralized, decentralized question. It's just another example, might be slightly controversial, but governments right now are very centralized. So decision making is somewhat very, very centralized. So with DAOs, we can make it way more decentralized. And that's what we were all hoping for. So even though democracy is supposed to be decentralized, it's not really decentralized, because in the end, somebody up there make decisions for all of us. But ideally, all of us should be making decisions for all of us together.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something that is very near and dear to my heart as well. Also, something like media is very centralized, right? The information that we see from the news stations that put it out. There's also a strong motivation for media companies that are owned by corporations to put out media that's favorable to them. And you have to trust that this information is correct. But there's this saying, it's like, who will watch the watchmen? Like, those people are the ones that are telling us what's correct and what's not correct. But we should be able to decide that. And maybe there's a trust score that you can assign to things. And so those applications are being built on Ethereum and other places to verify, like, yeah, this is real, right? This is like not fake news, as so many of us have heard in the last couple of years. What is real news? What is real truth? What is really happening in this country or other countries around the world? And the more distributed, the more decentralized you have it, the more secure and the more accurate you're going to find that it is, because it's a general consensus of people instead of a centralized organization or a group of people who have an interest to protect. Try not to get down conspiracy theories, but there are a lot of conspiracists but we've seen a lot of things, a lot of corruption. And I think that Ethereum is a path to overcome corruption in many ways, and to overcome the wrong incentives for making a wholesome society. So where are we?
Do you want to talk more about communities, Taylor?
Yeah, I love to talk about communities.
And the social change.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about social change through blockchain and cryptocurrencies. We talk a lot about sovereignty and empowerment. We touched on it a little bit with data, but where we really stand to benefit people is in countries that have a extremely corrupt system, whether it's banks or governments, and that are constantly subject to the whims of the centralized parties. And that's where we see a lot of cryptocurrency adoption, actually. And that is for a lot of financial purposes, but there's also a lot of opportunities there. So, some people here have described themselves as an artist or a graphic designer, or an engineer or a writer. With Ethereum and like other like blockchain ecosystems, you can work for these organizations, you can contribute to these projects, and you can be paid in this currency that in some places actually has a more stable value than their local currency. So we're thinking of places like Venezuela or Argentina, or Zimbabwe is a good example as well. Like the inflation on the currency because of what the government parties are doing is insane. And there's nothing you can do to stop them because they have the power to print more money when they decide to, and to do whatever they want with it. And if you have very little power in the voting representation of those countries or your local politics, then there's nothing you can do. But what you can do is opt out of that system. So if you say, I only need to keep as much, Bolivar in my wallet, in my bank account to pay for local food and stuff, but the rest of my life savings is in a cryptocurrency coin. It empowers people to avoid inflation in their local economy, and it makes their wallets self-sovereign. It also exposes them to a global community, like a global currency, a one world currency, if you will, that is going to be more stable in the long run than their local economy, because they can no longer trust their local economy. So it's almost like providing security and safety for people who have had the trust broken by their local community. Now, it's funny, actually, because a lot of this progress and a lot of these applications are being built in the West and in Europe. And we haven't had those major problems with major inflation, right? We've had things pretty stable. There's obviously some corruption, and there's obviously some things we don't like happening at times. But the people we stand to benefit are those people who need those solutions right now. I think, Colombia, Argentina, they're some of the highest adoption countries of these currencies. And what it allows for is, if I'm in the US and I have a graphic design need, and I'm like, hey, I just want the best person for the job, and there's a network of freelancers or graphic designers in Argentina that I want to work with. Well, if I don't have a business, or if I don't have a international money transmitting license to be able to send the funds to pay them there, well, if I use Ethereum or I use another Ethereum-based currency, I can pay them for the work that they do instantly or right after they do it. and I can choose anyone from any country that I want to, and pay the rate that they desire. And it allows me to empower those communities with my funds from this country instantly and seamlessly. Now, there's applications built around making sure that the work gets done. Like, they're called like escrow contracts, basically, where it's like two people would be able to vote on whether it's done or not. And there's all kinds of different applications going after that marketplace. But there is this kind of budding gig economy, they call it. And the gig economy is like people working for them from websites or working from the internet, basically. And what we're trying to do is make sure that people are working in ways that they enjoy, in ways that they feel like they're contributing to a community, not just to a company, so that they're getting as much value as they're creating for the company or for the organization. And these community-owned initiatives, which is like what I call DAOs, are kind of the first wave of that based on blockchain technology. DAOs give people ownership, representation, voice, and they make you a part of the governance process. Yes, Rachel.
I just want to say we're coming up to our hour. So if people need to leave, feel free to leave when you need to. I'm going to send everyone the recording and some links to more information as well in the email. But I also want to get to the NFT part, and that before, if people want to stay, and then just kind of open it up to questions, and because we want to do another series of this. So what else people are wanting to know that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. This is the beginning of a longer conversation, and one that we can definitely keep having. I think it might also be useful to take it to a subtype of asynchronous chat. Like, if people are willing to jump into Discord and post their questions there, then that could be a good forum to answer questions and to have other people answer the questions as well. So yeah, I'll put that up there. Maybe we can invite them to the Panvala chat. So yeah, social change, self-governance, basically empowering people to take control of their assets or their value. I think that that's a really key point of this, and it's something that we haven't seen before. It is a new idea and a concept in progress, like that people can govern themselves. You may agree or disagree with that, but what we're trying to do is create a system that allows for that allows for self-governance. And there are already some applications, some projects. I actually just signed up for healthcare with an organization that's basically a DAO that also has a physical entity here in the US, but it's a commons, and it's a collective of individuals who have come together to pool their needs as well as their resources to get better rates on services. So like, I need healthcare here in the US. I want some life insurance maybe, and workers' compensation. Well, instead of going directly to the companies one by one that I need to get all those services, I can register with the commons, and I can get those services from the commons. And I get the same good rates as if I'm working for a company, but I can stay freelance. I can stay independent without locking me into that job that has all my coverage, because the gig economy tends to be a little bit of like it can trap you. If you have a job at Amazon, let's say, and you're like, all my healthcare is at Amazon, my family is covered through that health coverage, you're not free to take your work or to just take your career in your hands, because there's a lot of dependence variables that might throw your life off, basically. And just like I think Farouk was saying, you should be able to take your data to different places on the platform. We should be able to take your services to different places as well. So you can take your healthcare, you can take your education needs, like you can take whatever that you need and make sure that it's more tied to you and less tied to your job. And that's where we see things going, right? People opting into commons-based solutions instead of career-based solutions. Because when we do that, we give a bit of power to these organizations that sign our checks, basically. And that's not a great position to put ourselves in, I think personally, but we haven't had great solutions for this. So there are more solutions being created now, more community-based solutions that serve people and not corporations, essentially. NFTs. Real quick on NFTs. NFTs are unlimited possibilities, in my opinion. It's such a deep rabbit hole to go down, but it stands for non-fungible tokens. And a non-fungible token means you can't exchange one-for-one value of a non-fungible token, because if Rachel sends me an NFT of a beautiful ballet performance, and she is like, hey, this is my ballet NFT. It's I'm going to put it on the open market, but maybe it's 3 ETH. And then Jojo sends me a cosmic psychedelic mural NFT. There's no way to one-for-one exchange those. And so the NFT system is it's a representation of a thing. So it could be a piece of artwork. It could be a soundtrack. It could be from a physical shirt or something like that. It could be any number of things. And basically it's that representation of it. So one of the first use cases we've seen of NFTs is people create a work of art, and then they create an NFT, and that NFT goes with that work of art. So for example, the power of having those two things tied together is every time the artwork is sold, the NFT goes with it. But every time the NFT is sold, you could programmatically decide that 10% of the royalties go to the artist who created it, always. So that throughout the history of that painting being sold on along the line, the artist always gets 10%, which is a really powerful way of making sure that the people who create these wonderful works of art are always compensated fairly and equally. And that galleries that we can think of as centralized middlemen do not take all the value from the artist. And they say, hey, we're going to buy your work at 50%, and then we're going to sell it all the way on along the line. And one day it's going to be worth 5 million, but you don't see any of that. NFTs are a way of empowering the artist. So it's like you create this NFT and this artwork, and it's sold through an open source application or a digital gallery, basically. And people can browse through your artwork and your pictures, and they can buy that NFT. And whoever holds the physical artwork, once the NFT is sold, can send the artwork off to the buyer, and they can transfer the NFT to their wallet as well. But 10% of that sale, because it's programmed, will automatically go into the other wallet of the artist. And there's no way in which you can do that now with physical art resale and stuff. So that's one example, but there are tons and tons of examples of how NFTs can be used. And music royalties is another great one. There's a company called Audius that's creating music NFTs. And it's a wonderful another rabbit hole to go down. I actually think if there are people interested in learning more about NFTs, I would love to bring someone or a handful of people who are much more familiar and work in the NFT space to come here and explain it to you, because I do work with them and they love talking about NFTs all day long. Any other questions before we circle back? I think we had some trouble with the Discord link, so I'll just grab it and bring it here.
I put the Discord link that's not my account up. I also put a list of other organizations everyone could check out, but I'm going to send it all in the email because it just kind of got clumped together. I'll also put in the email the Discord server where we can continue this conversation, like Yaler said, where you can just ask questions as they come up, and then the whole community can answer them for you. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm just grabbing the link for the Panvala server now because that'll be the easiest way for us to...
I think I have it right here, Yaler.
Oh, you do?
I'll put it in there.
Awesome, thank you. Great. Well, yeah, that has been your really down and dirty first Crypto 101. How did people feel about the information that came from that? Was it a lot? Was it too much? Was it like, did it open up some avenues of interest for you?
Marcy.
I thought this was really great. Yeah, I thought that Yaler and Farouk, you guys, and other people contributed, but you guys did a really great job explaining this to someone like me, who this is totally not how my brain works or what I know anything about. So I just really appreciate that you guys did this.
Awesome. And this is our first one ever. So hopefully they'll get better over time and it's more continuing information. But I think the key is like staying at this 101 level and then giving all of you the resources to go and like do your own 102, right? To then go and make it practical. Like we're like looking at books right now, but then like I hope to send you on your own field trips so you can say, how do I work in this space? Or how do I learn about this space? Or what communities might I align with, whether it's art or identity or these kind of things. Yeah, exactly. Farouk, you can teach the Crypto Fibonacci group. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you to everyone for coming here on Sunday to learn about this wacky stuff. I hope that if there's some thread of interest or a string you'd like to pull on more, that you'll come to our next session, and you can follow Rachel wherever Rachel is, and she'll tell you when the next session happens. And feel free if a question comes up and you're like, hey, I remember you talking about this, but I don't have clarity on it, post it in the Discord. And we would love to help answer those questions. There's a lot of really smart people in the Discord as well. Discord is just like a chat, like if you're using Facebook Messenger, but it's more decentralized in a sense, right? Because of many servers, but it's not Facebook. So we're not a big fans of Facebook.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I'm going to give you a ton of information. The email I'm going to send, feel free to email me back directly, or again, go on to Discord if you want to share more just about the experience or just have more questions. And then we're going to figure out when to have another one of these, but also we'll talk about like the next series, the addition to this information. So we'll be posting that relatively soon too. Yeah. Joey.
I was curious, was there a desire to have more people? Was this a selected group of people that wanted to have, like, we want to take what we did now and grow, or like, is there room if we wanted to invite friends?
You can invite your mom, Joey. She can come to the next one.
Okay.
Absolutely. Bring mom.
And your sister.
Yeah.
And your girlfriend.
I don't think we have this concept of cohorts right now, which is what I think you're referring to, right? Like we have these 15 people in the room who we could continue on with. But what we could do is, if we see the same faces showing up, we could increase the information so that we're like, we learned this, right? Well, these concepts or these applications are built based around these ideas. And as new people come in and stream in, we could like bring them up to speed basically and answer. I think it'll kind of be like a self-directed learning journey, right? Where it's like, you have this information. If you're new, you got to catch up a little bit to where we're going. And then maybe in like 2 months, we start another Crypto 101 where it's a new group of people. But yeah, if you guys continue showing up to the events Rachel brings along, we'll keep moving the knowledge base up so that you have access to new information and that you feel like you have more resources to then go out and utilize.
And I just wanted to say, guys, we haven't even scratched the surface of how powerful cryptocurrency is. This is like, what we're talking about now is just like such base level stuff. I mean, there's so many incredible things you can do with your money, with voting, with governance. It's just, the list is incredible. So if you stick along, you might find yourself into a nice little crypto space or community that where you might really be able to grow and eventually maybe quit your real life job like I did and find financial independence and find your passion. So
yeah, +1 on that. There's so much opportunity in this space, and I constantly find myself surrounded by people that inspire me. They teach me, and it's a wonderful place to be. Like, there's a lot of smart people. There's also a lot of caring and compassionate people who are trying to build a better world, not just make, hyperspeed capitalism happen again. So stick around and you'll find those groups and those people that help you in your journey, like I found others who helped me in mine.
Dan, did you want to say something? No, okay.
All good, all good. Thank you guys. Really great interview.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go hiking now.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.